Change is the only constant, but how do we navigate change with purpose and intent? Hi, I'm Suzy Sanders. I'm the founder of Alchemy Virtual Assistants and I'm your ever curious host. And today we're cracking into another entrepreneurial story of purpose. And I've been very intentional with my guest to come and join us this week. And I'm joined, and you're joined, by the wonderful Anne Pearson, who is a career transition coach. So when we're talking about making purposeful change, she's got a lot of insight, experience, and a really valuable perspective to add. So Anne, thank you for making the space to join us today.
You're welcome.
Oh, it's good to have you here. And I alluded a little bit into your work now, but you have a very vibrant and diverse career. You had a career in the Ministry of Defence, the Royal Air Force, you yourself, as well as supporting others with their career changes. You've been through a few as well.
Definitely, yeah. So, yeah, I'm a registered nurse by background. So I started off as a nurse 30 years ago, which I can't believe. And after some time in the NHS, at the age of 30, I went through a career transition and joined the military. I don't know what I was thinking, but I loved it. It was brilliant. And what a journey it's been.
And then here we are, and we're going to crack into, if you're willing, a little bit of your story. And for those of you that have joined or regulars listening or watching the show, we always theme the episode around a big question, and I'm going to ask that big question to Anne now. And how does one navigate purposeful change?
Such a good question. When you posed this the other day, I sort of mulled on it and I sort of slept on it a bit. But I think it's very much at the root of what I do now. Navigating purposeful change. It implies that there's a whole journey process in that anyway. And I think, with any journey, it's easy to get lost or take the wrong turn and go the wrong way or just change to actually, no, I don't want to go over there. I want to go over here. And I think the key to navigating is making sure that you've got that real end goal. You're really clear on what you want at the end of it. And it's so easy in a big, long transition process, as a career as I work with, is to get lost and just go, oh, I'll just default to what's comfortable, or I'll just default to, what's familiar. And I help people obviously not do that and find their thing that they feel really purposeful and passionate about. And we keep reminding ourselves of what that is. And as long as you can keep your eyes on that, I suppose you could call it a North Star or something like that, then you will keep going in the right direction. And that, I think, that's the key.
I love that expression of North Star, and yeah, having that end goal in mind, recognizing that it is a journey, and as human beings, we don't like change and we don't like uncertainty, do we? And actually, that's inevitable with change, isn't it? So what do you, in your experience, whether it be personal or through your work, what do you think are some of the common things that people fall off their path for?
Safety is the main reason why humans don't like change and will fall off their path, is because our brains are naturally predisposed to stick with something that's safe. And it goes back, thousands of years when we lived in caves, and going out and do something out on a limb was dangerous. But our brains haven't really caught up with that. So it's all about that. And I think if we can remind ourselves that's what it is, when it's, don't go for that scary promotion, or don't stand up and speak your mind. It's that part of your brain that's telling you it's not safe to do that. But that's ultimately where the real change happens, is if you can lean into that and push through it and understand that that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to keep you safe, and in a way you've got to sort of be thankful for that, because we all need that safety element of, not doing really stupid things, but it also stops us doing the really challenging, really sort of life-changing stuff too.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you've kind of touched on that there, because I was going to say, what a position of honor and joy and privilege, the work that you do to see and support that big life-changing moments for people. And what are some of the things that are worth pushing through that kind of perceived safety and all those fears and those wobbles, and what are some of the things that are on the other side, broadly speaking?
There is an element of you've got to think about the grass is greener. There is an element of that. And some of that is true, but somebody said that I interviewed recently said, you know, the grass is greener where you water it. So I think one of the challenges that people face when they come to career transition and sort of reflecting on what I've just said about being safe is that they feel stuck. They feel like they don't like to go to work on a Monday morning. They dread it. You know, they don't like the work environment. It might be toxic. And yet, and I just want to go, just get a grip, because these people are stuck doing something that they clearly don't love, and they're too scared to take that step. And there's lots of things that we can unravel and look into, which helps people make that move. But it could be things like, you know, I've been in this organisation for a long time. I'm familiar with it. I've got to this rank, or I've got to this position. I've got to have to start at the beginning again, and that's scary. Or I don't know what else I do. You know, you become sort of channeled into, this is the only thing I could do. I had a really lovely conversation with an ex-teacher, a deputy head teacher, who now does coaching and helps people transition out of the classroom. And he was saying it's quite interesting how people get stuck into thinking this is the only thing they could ever do. But like I do, he also helps people understand what their strengths are and how that's translatable into something totally different. Yeah. And I think it's like taking a massive leap. And I related it on a post the other day about, I had to go to Burley horse trials because I'm obsessed with, you know, going and watching things like that. It's a bit like taking that whole leap of faith, going over a massive fence. You can't see the other side, but you've got to trust the process. So there's got to be a point where you don't just dip your toe in, you've got to jump right in and go for it. And that's when the real change can happen. Because if you kind of try and do a little bit, and you try a bit of this and try a bit of that, you'll inevitably go back to your safe element, your safe zone, and you'll stick with what you've already known and you've known for a long time, and it won't necessarily help you move in the right direction. It won't help you get to that purposeful change that you really want, because the purpose has kind of gone out the window at this point.
Yeah, and that plays back to what you were saying about that end goal and knowing what it is, and keeping close to that as well. And you said some beautiful things there, Anne. The grass is greener where you water it, 100%. And recognizing actually change itself can be little micro moments, can't it? It can be, do you know what, I'm going to do some work on myself to make this particular situation better for me, or change how I respond to it. Or it could be the big life-changing jumping in.
Yeah.
You know, it's a whole spectrum, if you like, isn't it,
Yeah.
of change. And I know I've nearly been in business for 10 years now, and when I first started, money was a huge part of my safety and my fears, and would someone pay me for my skills, and, you know, would this work, and I think, you know, for me personally, money was very closely linked to my feelings of safety and having to create a client base and creating a business, and I think that is a big part for a lot of people, isn't it, with that stuckness? Would you agree?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And that's one of the biggest, it's one of the biggest drivers why people won't move on, because of the security and the safety of, you know, that predictable income, that pension perhaps. And that was my case when I was in the military. It was, you know, it was a good salary and I had a really good pension to look forward to. Luckily, you get your pension at the end of your 16 or 20 years or however long your, you know, service terms are. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's hard for people to sort of move out of that certainty. And the other thing that adds to that is the kind of pressure of other people around them. So if they feel like they're the provider, and I've had conversations often with men who are leaving the military, who just like, I have to keep earning. I have to do this. We've got a mortgage to pay, you know. And yet, in the same conversations, their spouses have been saying, just go and do something different, because you're going to be so much happier and nicer to be around when you're doing something you love doing and not sticking with something you hate because you think you have to do it. So there's a whole kind of mental struggle that goes on with any kind of change. And changes can be anything. It not necessarily just career, it could be relationships, it could be all sorts of things, but it's the same processes that happen in our brains when change happens, because you're battling, you've got this kind of battle against safety versus the what could be, the possibility of something different or better. And sometimes that's just not easy to see. But you said before about, and it just made me think about micro changes, and I think it's as long as you know that the direction you're going is roughly the right direction. You might not necessarily have a crystal clear vision of what it would look like, but that in your heart you feel this is what I want to be doing. And for me it was coaching. It's a bit like that, traveling along a dark road at night with your headlights. You can't see any further than 100 meters or so in front of you. You've just got to trust that the way will unfold for you, as long as you're kind of following that purpose. And it is very much from the heart. And this is for me, this is how I like to work with my clients, is really helping them understand what their heart's telling them, because it's crowded out by other people's opinions and what we should expect to be, how we should expect to be seen by others. Sometimes you just need to peel all that back and just go, what do I really want here? What's really true to me? What's, that authenticity, that sort of intuition thing, that's the stuff that we end up not listening to because of what everybody else thinks we should do, or what we think we should be doing for other people. Do you see what I mean? I've gone down a full-on rabbit hole about authenticity, but it's very much the heart of what I do, why I do what I do, and how I help people as well.
And it's so relevant and so meaningful, because I'm very heart-led, and maybe this is just my experience speaking, I think there are so many expectations, societal expectations, family pressures, social circles. And then there's the needs of others, particularly, and I know you're a mother, I'm a mother, you get stuck in this providing and caring for others. But to actually sit down, raw, open, honest, and say, this is what I need, it can feel incredibly vulnerable, incredibly counterintuitive. The world doesn't, in a big corporate environment, they don't very often say, what is it you need? Or, encourage you to think and act from more of a heart truth space. So that in itself can feel incredibly daunting. And you reminded me there of, I remember when I made it public that I was going to start a business and I was leaving employment. And for me, deciding I was doing it was one thing, telling people I was doing it, totally different thing. So I was really quite emotional and took a lot of courage. And I remember, and I will hold this with me, one of my ex-colleagues I think it was meant as a very sincere, genuine, supportive thing, but it crushed me a little bit. It was like, oh, don't worry, you can always come and get your job back here if it doesn't work. and for me, it crushed me in that moment. But for me, that was a reminder that actually, yeah, I could. But I had to stay true to what I knew I was capable of, and explore the possibilities that I knew were out there. But there's so much, isn't there? And I think that's why your work is so valuable. And may I ask how you decided to become a coach? Was there a kind of defining moment, or was it a bit of a cumulative?
So the thing that is probably on my bookshelf behind, which I can't see right now, but it's a book called Finding Your Own North Star by Martha Beck. And I so just rewind a few years. So probably about 10 years ago, it's just nearly 10 years ago, we went to Canada. I was in the military. My husband got posted. He was also RAF. So he got posted out to Canada. And I had a career break because I couldn't have a job over there. So I took a career break. Kids were quite small. And we just thought we'd just go and enjoy living in a different country and experiencing a different culture and, all of the things that you get with living in a beautiful country like that. And my sister came over. My sister's she lives in New Zealand. She came over and she told me about a network marketing business. And I'd never heard of network marketing before, and it's a company called Arbonne. And I just thought, I quite fancy doing something, not just sitting around just doing mum stuff all the time. I wanted to work as well. And I just, before she'd ended up almost finishing the presentation, I said, how do I join? What do I do? How do I do this? Because I just fancied the idea. I knew nothing about skincare or nutrition. Signed up to do that, realised I was rubbish at sales, because that's what it was. It was, selling to people, friends and family, and the usual, and almost cold calling. I cringe at some of the things I did. But do you know what? What it did for me, it introduced me to personal development, introduced me to, personal growth, how I could learn about, myself a bit more. But it also introduced me to the possibility of working for myself and entrepreneurial, work. And I just loved it. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing. How did I not know about this when, I'm working 9 to 5, 8 to 5 at the mercy of a huge organisation, deployed at short notice potentially. I mean, I've done Afghanistan and Iraq. I've got the medals right there. And your life is not your own, even though I picked that. But as a single person, I then had priorities of children, family, my husband. And I just thought I wanted the flexibility. I wanted something different. So I knew I wanted something else, but I had to go back to the RAF after our time in Canada. So I spent 2 years back in the military. And what was really interesting, having come back from Canada, just on top of the world, having had the most amazing 3 years, I was happy. I was diagnosed with depression within 3 months of being back in the military. It just said to me a lot about, this is not right for you. That I think physically and mentally our bodies tell us when we're not on the right path. And I just thought, I'm just going to get through this. I did a great job. It was a really interesting job. I got really well paid, had a great team, but it was just not, I was just really dragging myself through that last 2 years, and through that was COVID as well. Anyway, through the Arbonne side of things, somebody had mentioned this book, Finding Your Own North Star by Martha Beck, and I read the book. And I remember thinking, I think I'm meant to be coaching. I just had this feeling about coaching. I'd had some experience of coaching when I worked at Cranwell as an instructor. I took an outer branch tour, and I taught leadership and, helped cadets going from Civvy Street to graduating as junior officers on the parade square. I was part of that process, and we had to learn how to coach. And I loved it. I loved how you could see somebody's potential or help them realise their potential and help them really believe in themselves in sort of doing something that was really out of their comfort zone. It just was the most satisfying thing. And I'd forgotten about it because I went back to the nursing side. So this book, it kind of said to me, coaching, that's where you want to be. And I remember saying that to my husband. I said, I think I'm meant to be coaching, because I was coming to the end of my service. I knew I was about, I could leave with a pension. So I thought I had that security, the security thing was still there. Anyway, probably about 3 or 4 days later, something popped up on social media. And this woman that I'd been following called Mandy Morris, and her social media handles Manifest with Mandy. She talked about manifestation, and she was creating a coaching course, and it just popped up and it just said, me, this is what you need to do. And I just jumped in. I just didn't really think about it. I thought that's what I need to do, because it was about finding authenticity. That was the purpose of her coaching course. So I jumped straight in and I haven't looked back, and that was it. That was it. It just unfolded once I decided that's what I was going to do. And that's that whole thing that I started at the beginning about, once you know what your purpose is, when you know your direction you're going, the rest of it will kind of unfold. It's that headlight thing. It will just all unfold for you. And I think it's really true, is that, once you've decided, made a decision, this is the direction I'm going, opportunities will come in. All it is expanding that awareness so that your brain just goes, oh, that will contribute to that goal. That will contribute to that goal. And you start noticing more things that will lead you in that direction. And that's what I love about it, because people think manifestation is all a big woo-woo thing. And some people think that's fine. But I think what it does, it opens your mind to, this is where I want to go, but these are the things I'm going to now be more aware of that will get me in that direction. And that's what it is. It's creating that awareness.
Yeah.
So, very long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, it started in Canada really with network marketing, and here I am now.
Oh, and thank you so much for sharing all of that very generously and freely with us. Thank you. And I love that visual of the headlights in the darkness, and you're trusting that the road's there, aren't you?
Yep.
In that scenario, but using that as a visual for navigating career change, or sometimes just some more smaller change, knowing what that end is, keeping the headlights on and keeping that direction, and giving yourself perspective as well sometimes, because hearing you speak about your journey and the key parts, and that was a very nutshell version, I'm sure, but there must have been so many little moments within that story where you must have had some doubt.
Totally. I do every day, and I think that's the thing. You've got to think about, well, what's the alternative?
Mm.
There are, as a nurse, I've got no idea. I had no idea about marketing myself and putting myself out there and having to network. I've never had to go out and find clients before, because patients have always come to me for a vaccination or some sort of treatment or something. So that was a whole mindset shift, and that I found that a real struggle, and I'm still working at it. But it's when you work with those clients that have the light bulb moment, and it just makes you think, that's why I'm doing it. That's the reason. Because you're right. If you're an entrepreneur, it's a very lonely job sometimes. You haven't got a boss to just sort of give you a bit of a pep talk, or you can be in it on your own, and you've got to be your self motivation person as well as your biggest cheerleader. And as you mentioned earlier, that there'll always be naysayers. There'll always be people who are doubting you and saying things like, well, you can always go back to your job. It's usually their own fears that are talking, not necessarily encouraging you. So you've got to surround yourself with the people that keep you motivated, keep you going. So, they always talk about, you're the average of the 5 people, the 5 people you're closest to. And actually, that's true. But if those people are not entrepreneurs, then they're not successful. You're going to become the average of that. You've got to surround yourself with people who will lift you up and encourage you and challenge you. And another way to say it really is, if you find yourself you're the most intelligent person in the room, it's time to find a different room as well. It's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
So with regard to doubt, yes, but you've got to keep focused on that end goal, and that's the thing that keeps you navigating towards that purpose, if you like, which is what this question was about. And there will be doubts, but there are ways around it, and you've got to know the tools and the techniques to keep yourself going and keep leaning into where you want to be.
Yeah, 100%. And I wouldn't ever expect or ask you to disclose any secrets, but I'm wondering, do some of your clients come to you, do they have that end goal in mind? Or is it more common that a place of stuckness and murkiness, and you work with them on that clarity?
Generally speaking, it's the stuckness that brings them to me. Quite often work with ex-military people as well, so we kind of speak the same language. But, we get each other, and that I think that really helps. But it's generally speaking the stuckness, and the sort of things that I hear are, I so hate my job. I've left the military. I got a job because that's what I thought I needed to do. But it's just a job that wearing a different uniform, and it's what I did in the military, and I didn't like that, and I'm doing it now, and I don't like it, and I just don't know what else I could do. So it's that I have no idea what else I would do, and that's where I think the magic happens. I think that's my superpower, is finding that thing for people.
Yeah.
So I've worked with people who some people who are ex-military, who've gone from admin side of things and not enjoying that, to dog massage therapy. I mean, it's so different, and it's great when they kind of come up with this, and I don't tell them. I help them with the exploration side of things, somebody else that I work with who went from army intelligence side of things to pottery, somebody else creating a clothing brand, having worked in cybersecurity, somebody else working in the charity sector, doing personal organising for people, so it's all really different stuff, but it's kind of like, they've had it in the back of their mind a bit. They've just sort of forgotten about it or shoved it to one side thinking this is not a viable option. And they've come where I'm really, really stuck right now. And then we help to unpeel that, and we help them understand what it is that makes them feel passionate, and they might not choose to follow it, but they might use it as a hobby, for example, but it just makes their life a little bit more fulfilled in other ways. But yeah, so I think it's I've no idea what to do people are my favourite people to work with, and especially if they go on to start businesses as well, because I love that part too, and get into them, be really creative about what they could possibly achieve with this, and I get excited with them, and I cheerlead them and go, think about what your life would look like in 5 years' time, and they're like, oh yeah, this is amazing, this is exciting. So yeah, favourite people are those people.
Oh, I can tell from the way that you were speaking there. I kind of saw your light brighten a little bit there, Anne. And it's wonderful, isn't it, when you think of like the differences in kind of past career, future endeavors, and there's always beautiful links and synergies there. And I suppose, if I may ask you, Anne, like, what does the future hold for you? What's your kind of, what are you hoping for in the next 5 years?
Good question. I would like to do more coaching. I'd love to have more clients. I have created an online course to help with that. So not everybody's ready to do one-to-one coaching, even though I love it. Not everybody's ready, and not everybody needs that. So I've created an online course. So ultimately, I'd like to be doing a lot more coaching. I'd like to have some really good success stories with people moving into their own businesses. I'd really like to be working with some recruiters as well. I'm in the process of trying to connect with some recruiters as well. So for those who don't really want to set up their own business, they want to go into a different industry. So I'm exploring how that would work at the moment. So to answer your question, it is a bit vague. And having thought about what I've just said today, actually, it's probably something I should really go and write down and be more specific about. But being fully booked with my one-to-one clients would be amazing, in a year's time, never mind 5 years' time, and then being able to support other people with an online version or some group coaching or something like that would be brilliant. So I think that's where I'm going at the moment, but yeah, obviously some work to do. Maybe I need to be more clear about my own goals.
Oh, well, I mean, there's never ever any judgment here. And actually, it's the headlights again, isn't it? Because it is a journey. It is a journey. And I think that's one of the things that I, in the past, am guilty of not making or not prioritizing that space for reflection and perspective within my own work and what I'm doing, because again, I know I've slipped into that serving. You pour everything into your clients and everything into the business, and then it's like, oh, actually, where am I going? And having the ability to kind of course correct and take that time is really important, isn't it? And we will obviously get some links dropped in, the beautiful book reference that you've had, your online diary and stuff. If anybody's thinking I need to speak to Anne, then we can make that happen. But before we kind of close down this episode, I'm wondering, you mentioned something earlier that's stuck in my mind about being an entrepreneur and having a business is a lonely place. And I wholeheartedly agree, it really can be. And I think, is there any words of wisdom you would offer someone who's maybe not got their lights on as bright on that dark road? Is there any parting thoughts?
I think you've got to prioritise yourself first. I think it's making sure that you fuel your mind and your ideas with positive stuff that's going to actually help you move forward. One of the things that I've just reignited in a habit is My Miracle Morning, which is a book called by Harold Elrod. I don't know whether you've heard of that. It's called the Miracle Morning, funny old thing. And it talks about doing specific things every day which really help that. And so it's, meditation. For me, journaling, I've done journaling throughout probably 8 to 10 years, probably longer now. I find that really beneficial because that keeps me on track with, my positivity side of things, and exercise and, physical health and as well as your mental health. And it's helping you, it's creating that foundation for success, because if you're depleted and it's that whole age old cliche, you can't pour from an empty cup, you've got to fill your own cup first, you've got to look after yourself. And I think the world is very much reactive to things like social media and things. So I think it's by filling your own mind with all the positive stuff before you go and start checking your messages and start reacting like that, because we tend to, as humans, we tend to react. We've got to be proactive. We've got to proactively fill our cups with good stuff, and then we are in a good place to deal with anything else that's thrown at us. So that's what my passing words, my advice would be. And that's what I encourage all of my clients to do is those particular habits, a bit of journaling, sort of gratitude and visualizing and meditation and all of the good stuff.
Oh, thank you, Anne. Beautiful, poignant, and very, very meaningful. Prioritizing yourself. And I am very, very, very grateful to you, Anne, for being here. And I'm also grateful for you joining our conversation here today, whether you're watching or listening. Thank you, because our time, energy, and focus is so very precious. And I'm grateful that you've shared some of that with us here today. So please do reach out if there is anything that has really sparked in your mind. And we would love to hear. And I'll be back with another purposeful conversation soon. Take care.